goddess of all things rose naked from chaos, but found nothing substantial for her feet to rest upon, and therefore divided the sea from the sky. Dancing lonely upon its waves, she danced towards the south, and the wind set in motion behind her seemed something new, and a part with which to begin a work of creation. Wheeling about, she caught hold of this north wind, rubbed it between her hands, and behold, the great serpent Ophion. Eurynome danced to warm herself, wildly and more wildly, until Ophion, grown lustful, coiled about those divine limbs and was moved to couple with her. Now the north wind, who is also named Boreas, fertilizes, which is why mares often turn their hindquarters to the wind and breed foals without aid of a stallion. So Eurynome was likewise got with child. Next, she assumed the form of a dove, brooding on the waves, and in due process of time laid the universal aid. At her bidding, Ophion coiled 7 times about this egg, until it hatched and split in 2. Out tumbled all things that exist, her children, sun, moon, planets, stars, the earth with its mountains and rivers, its trees, herbs, and living creatures. Eurynome and Ophion made their home upon Mount Olympus, where he vexed her by claiming to be the author of the universe. Forthwith she bruised his head with her heel, kicked out his teeth, and banished him to the dark caves below the earth. Next, the goddess created the 7 planetary powers, setting a Titaness and a Titan over each. Thea and Hyperion for the sun, Phoebe and Atlas for the moon, Dione and Creus for the planet Mars, Metis and Cous for the planet Mercury, Themis and Eurymedon for the planet Jupiter, Tethys and Oceanus for Venus, Rhea and Cronus for the planet Saturn. But the first man was Pelasgus, ancestor of the Pelasgians. He sprang from the soil of Arcadia, followed by certain others, whom he taught to make huts and feed upon acorns, and sew pigskin tunics such as poor folks still wear in Euboea and Phocis. That is the Pelasgian creation myth. And I am getting this and most of the information in today's video from this book, The Greek Myths by Robert Graves. This is a great book. It breaks down a lot of the core Greek myths, and then it'll go in and talk about what he believes are some of the origins behind the myths, pulling upon historical record. It's a very thick book, but the myths themselves are pretty short. There's a lot of historical information in here, so if you want further information that this video doesn't provide, I would say check this out. But today I want to talk about the Greek pantheon of gods, mainly the Olympian gods. I've really become interested in Greek mythology over the last couple months or so. I've been doing a lot of reading and research in Greek mythology. Getting this book was obviously part of that research that I've been doing. I'll be talking a little bit about the Roman pantheon as well, since the gods between the two are very similar, just with the names changed. But this will mainly be focusing on the Greek myths. Now, there's a few different creation myths in the Greek cosmology. That was the Pelagian myth. There's also the Homeric and Orphic creation myth. So, this is from Homer. Some say that all gods and all living creatures originated in the stream of Oceanus which girdles the world, and that Tethys was the mother of all his children. But the Orphics say that the black-winged night, a goddess of whom even Zeus stands in awe, was courted by the wind, and laid a silver egg in the womb of darkness, and that Eros, whom some call Phanes, was hatched from this egg and set the universe in motion. Eros was double-sexed and golden-winged, and having 4 heads, sometimes roared like a bull or a lion, sometimes hissed like a serpent or bleated like a ram. Night, who named him Eurysipus, and Protogenes Phaethon, lived in a cave with him, displaying herself in triad, night, order, and justice. Before this cave sat the inescapable Mother Rhea, playing on a brazen drum, and compelling man's attention to the oracles of the goddess. Phanes created earth, sky, sun, and moon, but the triple goddess ruled the universe until her scepter passed to Uranus. So again, we have the universe being hatched out of an egg in this myth as well, and we're still seeing Rhea. And what's interesting here is we have the force of the Eros, right? Eros was hatched from the egg that was laid in the darkness. Eros was double-sexed, so both male and female, had golden wings, and had 4 heads, the head of a bull, the head of a lion, the head of a serpent, and the head of a ram. That created the universe. And you see, so here's the creation myth here, and then below it are all the annotations or the historic themes around this myth. But of course, the chief cosmology of the Greek pantheon are the Olympians, the Olympic gods. So finally, the last piece I'll be reading here is the Olympian creation myth. At the beginning of all things, Mother Earth emerged from chaos and bore her son Uranus as she slept. Gazing down fondly at her from the mountains, he showered fertile rain upon her secret clefts, and she bore grass, flowers, and trees, with the beasts and birds proper to each. This same rain made the rivers flow, and filled the hollow places with water, so that lakes and seas came into being. Her first children of semi-human form were the 100-handed giants, Briareus, Gyges, and Goddess. Next appeared the 3 wild, one-eyed Cyclops, builders of gigantic walls and master smiths, formerly of Thrace, afterwards of Crete and Lycia, whose sons Odysseus encountered in Sicily. Their names were Brontus, Steropes, and Arges, and their ghosts have dwelt in the caverns of the volcano Etna, since Apollo killed them in revenge for the death of Asclepius. The Libyans, however, claimed that Garamus was born before the Underhanded Ones, and that when he rose from the plain he offered Mother Earth a sacrifice of the sweet acorn. So that's the Olympian creation myth. Let's see if there's any other ones in here. The 5 ages of man. That doesn't seem important here. The castration of Uranus. The dethronement of Cronus. So it's interesting to note if you look at the supposed family tree here of the Olympic gods, they all spring forth from Cronus and Rhea or Rhea. So Gaia and Uranus. In Greek mythology, Gaia is the personification of the earth and one of the primordial deities, and Uranus is the personification of the sky, or more realistically, the heavens, the spiritual sky, the heavens, the stars, all that. So they're coming together, the earth and the heavens creates Cronus and Rhea. Cronus was the leader of the Titans, the divine descendants, and Rhea was the daughter of the earth. And Cronus and Rhea birthed Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, and Hestia. Then at some point in the myth, we have it. We have it here. We have the castration of Uranus. And again, Uranus is the personification, the primordial personification of the heavens and the skies. But here we have the myth of his castration. Uranus fathered the Titans upon Mother Earth after he had thrown his rebellious sons, the Cyclops, into Tartarus, a gloomy place in the underworld which lies as far distant from the earth as the earth does from the sky. It would take a falling anvil 9 days to reach its bottom. In revenge, Mother Earth persuaded the Titans to attack their father, and they did so, led by Cronus, the youngest of the 7, whom she armed with a flint sickle. They surprised Uranus as he slept, and it was with a flint sickle that the merciless Cronus castrated him, grasping his genitals with the left hand, which has ever since been the hand of ill omen, and afterwards throwing them and the sickle too into the sea by Cape Drepanum. But drops of blood flowing from the wound fell upon Mother Earth, and she bore the 3 Erinyes, furies who avenge crimes of parricide and perjury, by the name Alecto, Tisiphone, and Megara. The nymphs of the ash tree, called the Malay, also sprang from his blood. As a left-handed person, that's not great. Now it's important because he was castrated and his bits were thrown into the sea. They were thrown into the ocean. And that brings us to the birth of Aphrodite. I need to... Birth of Aphrodite is on page 49. obviously a very well-known Olympic god. Aphrodite, goddess of desire, rose naked from the foam of the sea and, riding on a scallop shell, stepped ashore first on the island of Cythera, but finding this only a small island, passed on to the Peloponnese and eventually took up residence at Paphos in Cyprus, still the principal seat of her worship. Grass and flowers sprang from the soil wherever she trod. At Paphos, the Seasons, daughters of Themis, hastened to clothe and adorn her. Important bit. Some hold that she sprang from the foam which gathered about the genitals of Uranus when Cronus threw them into the sea. Others that Zeus begot her on Dione, daughter either of Oceanus and Tethys, the sea nymph, or of the air and the earth, but all agree that she takes the air accompanied by doves and sparrows. So if you look at the family tree, they just have Uranus's genitals right down to Aphrodite, but that's not always accepted, so... as I said, Uranus and Gaia have Cronus and Rhea. Cronus and Rhea give birth to Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, and Hestia. Zeus and Hera give birth to Ares and Hephaestus. Zeus and Metis gives birth to Athena, Zeus and Leto, or Leto, I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, give birth to Apollo and Artemis. Zeus and Maia give birth to Hermes, and Zeus and Semele give birth to Dionysus. So that leaves us with the Olympic gods: Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, Hestia, the original 6. And then Zeus's children: Ares, Hephaestus, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Hermes, Dionysus, Aphrodite. Now, as you'll notice, there are more than 12 Olympians there. There's actually 13 Olympic gods, but they were not always worshipped together because there was the 11 Olympic gods that were always present in worship: Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Hermes. And then the 12th, depending on the time period and the location, the 12th god would be either Hestia or Dionysus. Some lists omit Hestia for Dionysus, and there's like a part of the myth that says that she gave up her throne on Mount Olympus to Dionysus. But some people argue that that's a modern invention and that wasn't a myth from the time, it was just an evolving sort of belief system. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list of the gods that were worshipped in ancient Greece. These are the 12 Olympians. But there's also lesser gods. There's lesser deities. Some people worship the Titans. Some people set up shrines and places of worship for the heroes, which would be Heracles, Icarus, things like that. There was lesser deities such as Hecate, things like that you might have heard of in the past, right? And then there was a separation of household gods as well. So there was gods that were worshipped out houses and temples and on shrines and stuff with statues, and then there was household gods, ones that were worshipped in the home. Those would be Hestia, Hecate, Hermes, Apollo, Aegeus, Zeus, Hercaeus, Zeus, Ctesios, Zeus, Melekios, and this gets really convoluted because you just heard me say Zeus with 3 different suffixes, and that is where I'm not going to really dive into the weeds on all this because we could be here for hours, and I don't really understand all of it too much yet. I'm still doing research on this. But from what I do understand, or what I've kind of gathered, is that in different places of worship geographically, the gods took on different characteristics, even if they were the same god. So ones that were very popular would be the god of tons of things, because they had worship spread out over multiple different geographic areas. And that's where you get the suffixes added on to the gods, because that's the god of that area. So like those 3 different Zeuses, that's all Zeus, but they worshipped him a little bit differently. They attributed things to him a little bit differently. And then, as these different, for lack of a better word, cults is what we kind of call them, would go and take over different areas, or they would kind of, let's say there was some sort of worship going on here, they would bring that into their own practice, and then their god would now be the god of that as well. And you'll see that with some of these gods. I'm going to go through and name them and what they're the god of. And you'll see that some of them have a very limited scope of things, and they're very like, this is all that it is, and that's it. Like, okay. And some of them have a ton of things that they're the god of. And from what I understand, again, I'm not 100% expert here, but from what I understand, that means that the followers of that god kind of went out and assimilated some other cultures and things, and the deities that were being worshipped there were perhaps assimilated into their god, and it grew, because all this is happening over a massive time period. You have to remember that as well. Welcome here. We'll start with Zeus, the head Olympian. Zeus is king of the gods. He is the first Olympic god. And in the Roman pantheon, Zeus is called Jupiter. Zeus is king of the gods and ruler of Mount Olympus. He's the god of sky, lightning, thunder, law, order, and justice. He is the child of the Titans Cronus and Rhea, brother and husband of Hera, brother of Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, and Hestia. He had many affairs with goddesses and mortals, such as his sister Demeter, the Titan Leto, or Leto, mortals Leda, and Alcmene, and more. Zeus's symbols include the thunderbolt, eagle, oak tree, bull, scepter, and scales. Now we come to Zeus's sister and wife, Hera. In the Roman pantheon, she is called Juno. She is queen of the gods and the goddess of marriage, women, childbirth, and family. Being the goddess of marriage, she frequently tried to get revenge on Zeus's lovers and their children. Her symbols include the peacock, the cuckoo, and the cow. Next we have, I'd say this is probably the god that, ever since I was a little child, made me interested in Greek mythology, because the thing about Greek mythology cosmology that's interesting that, other ancient cosmologies, ancient belief systems don't have is it's very well documented. Like Norse mythology, we know some of the gods, but there's not a lot of surviving literature documentation from the time period. We don't really know how people worship those gods in day-to-day life. But with the Greek gods we do. We know how the ancient Greeks worshipped the gods. We know what they believed. And we have surviving statues, writings, artwork of the gods that they worshipped. So in popular culture, Greek gods, all that stuff has always been present, and I've always been interested in it ever since I was a child. As I've gotten older now, I've looked more deeply into it. But one of the gods I always found the most interesting, especially visually, is Poseidon. In the Roman pantheon named Neptune, Poseidon is god of the seas, water, storms, hurricanes, earthquakes, and horses. Horses is the interesting one to me there, because everything else is ocean related. But then you have horses, which is interesting. Married to the Nereid, which is a sea nymph, Aphrodite, Although, as with many of the male Greek gods, he had many lovers. His symbols include the horse, bull, dolphin, and trident. I just did a quick little search on why Poseidon's the god of horses, when he is the god of the sea and ocean as well. And that is because Poseidon is thought to have likely been introduced to Greece by the Hellene people around the 2nd century BCE. And these are the same people who introduced horses to Greece for the first time. So these people worshipped Poseidon as a god. They introduced horses, ergo Poseidon horses. Kind of just goes together. Next we get to Demeter. Demeter in the Roman pantheon called Ceres, goddess of the harvest, fertility, agriculture, nature, and the seasons. She presided over grains and the fertility of the earth. She is the mother of Persephone, Despoine, and Arion. Her symbols include the poppy, wheat, torch, cornucopia, and pig. Now we have one of Zeus's children, Athena, in the Roman pantheon called Minerva. She is the goddess of wisdom, handicraft, and warfare. The daughter of Zeus and the Oceanid, Metis. She rose from her father's head fully grown and in full battle armor. Her symbols include the owl and the olive tree. Next up we have Apollo, one of the most well-known and, in the time period of Greece, most widely worshipped gods, and we're going to see that in the thing that he's the god of. Now he's called Apollo in both the Greek and Roman pantheon, although he probably would have been called Apollon. Same thing as Apollo, but with an N at the end, Apollon in Greece. But Apollo, Apollon, both acceptable. Apollo is the god of light, prophecy, philosophy, archery, truth, inspiration, poetry, music, arts, manly beauty. Interesting thing, manly beauty, medicine, healing, and plague. The son of Zeus and Leto, and the twin brother of Artemis. His symbols include the bow and arrow, the lyre, the swan, and the mouse. But there's way more than that as well. You have the sun, you have sunflowers, dolphins. Basically, that's a huge list up there. And Apollo, sometimes it's an interesting dichotomy, because some people say he's the god of the sun, but other people will say like Helios or Kronos is the sun, but Apollo is the light, which is like a very weird distinction, but it is a distinction nonetheless, I suppose. But I mean, as you can see, Apollo was a widely worshipped god of all those things. There is a temple of Apollo in Delphi, Greece. I'd love to visit someday. Now we have Apollo's twin sister, Artemis, called Diana in the Roman pantheon. Diana is the goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, virginity, the moon, archery, childbirth, protection, and plague. The daughter of Zeus and Leto and the twin sister of Apollo. Their symbols include the moon, horse, deer, hound, she-bear, snake, cypress tree, and bow and arrow. I find she-bear very interesting. I've never heard of a she-bear before. Next we have Ares, called Mars in the Roman pantheon. God of war, violence, bloodshed, and manly virtues. The son of Zeus and Hera. All the other gods despised him except Aphrodite. His Latin name Mars gives us the word martial arts, that sort of thing. His symbols include the boar, serpent, dog, vulture, spear, and shield. Now we have Aphrodite, named Venus in the Roman pantheon. Goddess of love, pleasure, passion, procreation, fertility, beauty, and desire. It's a very feminine goddess. The daughter of Zeus and the Oceanid or Titaness Dione, or perhaps born from the sea foam after Uranus's blood dripped into the sea after being castrated by Cronus. Married to Hephaestus, although she had many adulterous affairs, most notably with Ares. Her name gives us the word aphrodisiac. Everyone knows what an aphrodisiac is. While her Latin name, Venus, gives us the word venereal. It's very interesting to see how these gods have influenced the world of science, even, because, I mean, you look at the names of the gods: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, the Roman names, Mars. I'm not sure if those came before the planets were named that, but as my understanding is that the planets are named that because that is what the Romans named the gods. So I thought that's interesting. Her symbols include the dove, bird, apple, bee, swan, myrtle, and rose. Next we have the god Hephaestus, called Vulcan in the Roman pantheon. And the interesting thing about him is he has one leg that's limp. He has a leg that doesn't work, which is interesting. And it's an interesting thing about the Greek gods that I like, is that they're not depicted as perfect. They make mistakes, they're jealous, they have envy, they're violent, they can be cruel. Hephaestus, he's disabled. That's just something I've always found interesting. They're very human. Hephaestus is a master blacksmith and the craftsman of the gods, god of the forge, craftsmanship, invention, fire, and volcanoes. The son of Hera, either by Zeus or through parthenogenesis. Married to Aphrodite. His Latin name, Vulcan, gave us the word volcano. His symbols include fire, anvil, axe, donkey, hammer, tongs, and quail. And many ancient Greek, antiquity, blacksmiths, armorers, things like that would have symbols to Hephaestus, altars to Hephaestus, things like that. Now we have Hermes, called Mercury in the Roman pantheon. He is the messenger of the gods, god of travel, god of commerce, communication, borders, eloquence, diplomacy, thieves, and games. He is also the guide of dead souls to the afterlife. His symbols include the caduceus, which is the staff with two snakes wrapped around it that I'm sure you're all familiar with, winged sandals and cap, stork, and tortoise. And now we have the two that are interchangeable a bit here. Hestia, named Vesta in the Roman pantheon. She is the goddess of the hearth, fire, and of the right ordering of domesticity and the family. She was born into the first Olympian generation and was one of the original 12 Olympians. She is the first child of Cronus and Rhea, the elder sister of Hades, Demeter, Poseidon, Hera, and Zeus. And she is, interestingly, a virgin goddess. She is never depicted as having any lovers, but she has very limited mythology. She was not widely worshipped. She was a house goddess, as I mentioned earlier, most notably, most widely worshipped inside the home. So unfortunately, a lot of those things are no longer surviving. They've been lost to time. There were not a lot of large freestanding temples to her. There was one in Hermione and one in Sparta, but they don't exist anymore. So I don't think there's any surviving. Let's see, prospective founders of city-states and colonies sought approval and guidance of Hestia, not only of Hestia, but of Apollo, through one or another of their various oracles. Yeah. So it's interesting. She was mainly, not a lot of surviving iconography of Hestia, which is probably part of the reason she is frequently left off the 12 Olympians. Greek customs required that, as the goddess of sacrificial fire, Hestia should receive the first offering of every sacrifice in the household. Whenever a new colony was established, a flame from Hestia's public hearth in the mother city would be carried over to the new settlement. That's interesting. Her symbols are the pig, the hearth, and fire. And then finally we come to Dionysus, also called Bacchus in the Roman pantheon. Dionysus is the god of wine, the grapevine, fertility, festivity, ecstasy, madness, and resurrection. Patron god of the theater, the son of Zeus and the mortal Theban princess Semele, married to the Cretan princess Ariadne, the youngest Olympian god, as well as the only one to have a mortal parent. His symbols include the grapevine, ivy, cup, tiger, panther, leopard, dolphin, goat, and pine cone. Dionysus, just kind of a free will, free-spirited guy. Let's see if there's anything else I want to look at here. Maybe. Did I skip Hades? No, because I guess Hades is not on Mount Olympus. Yeah, so we'll cover Hades here a little bit then. He's obviously not in Olympian. Hades is the god of the dead, king of the underworld. He and his brothers Zeus and Poseidon defeated their father's generation of gods, the Titans, and claimed rulership over the cosmos. Hades received the underworld, Zeus the sky, and Poseidon the sea, with the solid earth along the province of Gaia available to all three concurrently. In artistic depictions, Hades is typically portrayed holding a bident and wearing his helm with Cerberus, the three-headed guard dog of the underworld, standing to his side. The Roman god Orcus is typically seen as Pluto. Deities. Hold on, interesting. Pluto was the ruler of the Greek underworld. The earlier name for the god was Hades, which became more common as the name of the underworld itself. Pluto represents a more positive concept of the god who presides over the afterlife. Interesting. So Orcus is the Roman. I didn't know this till just now. Orcus is the Roman god of the underworld, and then Hades was the original Olympic god. But slowly Hades came to refer to the domain of the underworld and became a more sort of positive, less scary figure perhaps. In Pluto, he morphed into Pluto, which is very interesting. The symbol of Hades is the cornucopia, cypress, narcissus, keys, serpents, mint, white poplars, dogs, pomegranates, sheep, cattle, screech owls, horses, and chariots. That is Hades. And I think that rounds us off there. I want to see if there's anything else in this book I want to talk about. The oracles. Do we have the muses in here? Actually, the muses, children of the sea. Actually, let's talk about the children of the sea, because you heard a few of the gods mated with Oceanus. So those are the children of the sea. They're the sea nymphs. So I think that's an important point on the sea nymphs. The 50 Nereids, gentle and beneficent attendants on the sea goddess Thetis, are mermaids, daughters of the nymph Doris by Nereus, a prophetic old man of the sea who has the power of changing his shape. The Phorcids, their cousins, children of Ceto by Phorcys, another wise old man of the sea, are Ladon, Echidna, and the 3 Gorgons, dwellers in Libya, the 3 Graeae, and some say the 3 Hesperides. The Gorgons were named Shathino, Euryale, and Medusa. Y'all know Medusa. All once beautiful, but one night Medusa lay with Poseidon and Athene, enraged that they had bedded in one of her own temples, changed her into a winged monster with glaring eyes, huge teeth, protruding tongue, brazen claws, and serpent locks, whose gaze turned men to stone. When eventually Perseus decapitated Medusa, and Poseidon's children, Creosaur and Pegasus, sprang from her dead body, Athene fastened the head to her aegis, but some say that the aegis was Medusa's own skin, flayed from her by Athene. The Graeae are fair-faced and swan-like, but with hair gray from birth, and only one eye and one tooth between the three of them. Their names are Enyo, Bonfredo, and Dione. Or Dano. These Greek names are really hard, man. The three Hesperides, by name Hespere, Agli, and Eretheus, live in the far western orchard which Mother Earth gave to Hera. Some call them daughters of night, others of Atlas and of Hesperus, daughters of Hesperus, sweetly they sing. Half of a kidney was lovely woman, half was speckled serpent. She once lived in a deep cave among the Arimi, where she ate men raw and raised a brood of frightful monsters to her husband Typhon. But hundred-eyed Argus killed her while she slept. Ladon was holy serpent, though gifted with the power of human speech, and guarded the golden apples of the Hesperides until Heracles shot him dead. Nereus, Phorcys, Thaumas, Erebia, and Ceto were all children born to Pontus by Mother Earth. Thus the Phorcids and Nereids claim cousinhood with the Harpies. These are the fair-haired and swift-winged daughters of Thaumas by the ocean nymph Electra, who snatch up criminals for punishment by the Erinyes and live in a Cretan cave. This is a very complex mythology. There's a lot of moving parts here, and a lot of history and stuff that I really am just kind of scratching the surface on, both in this video and my own understanding of it. So I hope you at least found this interesting. Maybe it's something you'd want to look more into yourself. I'm definitely still looking into it quite a bit. I do hope you at least enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more content just like this almost every single day. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.